Welcome.
Good. Thank you for the invitation. And for me, it's a pleasure to participate in this event. So today I will focus mostly my presentation on talking on the ideas behind this competition that we just won in China. That is the first massive timber housing. The project was called the self-sufficient housing. And then I would like to explain the ideas behind it. Behind it. So this project is in Shuang. It's a new city near Beijing. I have been working in China in several competitions in the last years. And then, the interesting thing is that this is a new kind of urbanism that they are developing in China, that in fact is based in the European urbanism, these cities with grids and more walkable ideas, because what they have been doing until now has been this kind of segregated, modern style urbanism, where that then is a good representation of the industrial city that import goods and produce trash and produce emissions and so on. And the kind of project we have been working in the last year is idea of working on what we so call the biocities, cities that are more acting like forests instead to emit CO2, they absorb CO2, and also they use renewable energy and they use the natural materials that are around. When I was chief architect, we were working in Barcelona with the idea defining a new mantra for the city that should be a self-sufficient city. So today we import also energy. The idea is that we could use buildings to produce energy. And then because the city of Barcelona, like many European cities, are already built, we should act like retrofitting our buildings, adding new layers like greenhouses in the rooftop. This drawing is from 2011. Storing the energy in the cars at that time didn't exist too much. Now it's developing, and we see that it's becoming a new standard, and also creating a new layer. I would say a metabolic layer for the cities. Another important topic is that the urban model, the traditional industrial city is a centralized model, and we were proposing to move to a distributed model. So a perfect centralized city could be Moscow or Beijing or Paris, where it's very clear that what is the center and what is the suburbia. And then in Barcelona, we were working with this idea of a city, a distributed city that doesn't have a center, but it has many centers that they are connected. This idea is based, we are working in this 500-meter radius because this is the standard and this is all the facilities that the city has. And the idea also was to apply this idea about the walkable city, a city organized with many centers, also to the public space, and start to remove cars from the city and start to have green spaces using developing the so-called super blocks. In Paris, they have called this the city of the 15-minute city. So the idea is that in a diameter of 500 meters, that this is what we are proposing in Barcelona, you can find almost everything that you need to live, including the public facilities, but also the working places. Another important topic for some of the projects we develop in China is to develop the mixed use and the diversity in the city at three scales, in the block, in the neighborhood, and also in the district. And based in this pre-assumption that we were doing before, then we got the pandemics. No, we got the COVID. So this image is from 1919 with the flu. It was the so-called Spanish flu, but it was so-called Spanish because Spain was one country didn't enter in the war, and that's why we're talking about flu. But flu was all over and killed millions of people. So today we live in a similar situation. I can this bring here because also 100 years ago was the moment of the foundation of the Bauhaus, where they were developing a new kind of architecture that was more open, was promoting the entrance of the light and the air, And this has produced a huge amount of rational architecture in many countries. This is Barcelona with these big terraces that were built in the 60s that in fact we were not building anymore. Now going to our project in Shuang, this is the competition was for 4 blocks and then we wanted to develop a proposal based on the idea of the self-sufficient city, a city where the city is able to produce almost all the resources that the people need to live. And this include energy, include food, and include many of the objects that we need. And then we also were developing the idea of many scales of privacy and between privacy and sharing and public, home, building, block, neighborhood, and the whole city, like different scale for the privacy. Our urbanistic idea is to mix the more European block, the Chinese taller buildings, and also the included productive solar greenhouses. And then this was the proposal that we delivered with 4 blocks that had many greenhouses on top, including offices sometimes villas, and sometimes actually greenhouses where we could produce food. Another thing, we'll see this soon. We're also dealing with something new in China about the slow mobility that in Europe and many European cities we are trying to develop. We are also trying to see how mobility will be in the future with electrical car or even self-driving shared minibuses. And today also, it seems we are introducing new technologies like this electrical, skate something, no? But what is interesting is that many of these ideas are old ideas. So this is a picture from Barcelona, again, 100 years ago, when we were developing these electrical elements that right now, 100 years, it seems finally they will work. Also today, when we see these city streets because of the COVID, that we cut the cars and then we expand the sidewalk when the people are walking, we can see that this is exactly what was happening 100 years ago before the arrival of cars. And the walkable city was the city with some public transportation like tram, were the city that we had 100 years ago. So this is the courtyard for our project, and also we were including working areas, different ways of working. But obviously in this pandemic, we learned that to be able to work near home, this is good. We were also proposing the co-working, and obviously we thought that we should do apartment where the people work at home. Maybe all of us, we are at home right now. I am at home talking to all of you. And also we are doing Zoom, we are doing teleeducation, that this is something has arrived to stay for the future. So we need to think also how are the apartments in this new kind of environment. We were also discussing to include this metabolic system to produce energy, to have an holistic vision of merging the nature and all the information layers that are in the city, but at the building scale and at the home scale, like having applications that allow people to connect not to your friend in India, but the person that you don't know that live across the corner. And then we can create platforms to share resources, share food, share objects with the people that are living in the community. Also, the idea of having the trash management in a more smart and efficient way, and also developing, as we had here, one swimming pool. They were asking a fireman station, a kindergarten, and several facilities that, in fact, we know this is something we have been doing in Europe during all the 20th century. One fundamental topic is the wood construction, because now we are working here in Barcelona in our institute, you will see now, on dealing with new forms of wood construction. This is not the traditional wood, but the new and technological wood. This is a CLT plan, cross-laminated timber, and this cross-laminated timber allow to make structures that are storing CO2. Instead to emit CO2, these panels are storing the CO2 that is embedded in the wood, because when the wood was growing, the trees were growing, they were storing CO2. And then this is the new forms of constructions that will bring us to the zero emissions building. So there are already samples in the left. This is the tallest CLT building in the world. And then these are buildings we are starting to build in Barcelona that are using the CLT construction. The interesting thing is that we are I am also the director, I am the founder, and right now the director of these Guallart Labs. And we developed this master in advanced ecological buildings. So all of you know Barcelona, that is here. But then this is also Barcelona, that is a huge park that is just attached to Barcelona. This is a natural park. So our institute owns this forest here, and then we decide to start to work with the forest because we wanted to see how we can merge nature and urbanity. This is the research place that we have. And then we have an holistic vision for the circularity of all the resources, including wood, water, food, and so on. So we produce food. Our students are making their own food and they are growing vegetables because the students are living there. So this is a kind of immersive program. We have a place that is a workshop where we can produce. This is the Green Fab Lab, where we can fabricate things using laser cutters, 3D printers, and also the CNC machines. And we have students from all over the world. And then I showed you this because we learn here that this kind of idea of making buildings that are almost like 0 kilometer buildings. So buildings that are using the material that are around is possible, obviously, in these places where we have wood. In other places in Africa, they have been doing cities with clay because they had the clay around. So this is the forest that we own. And then every year we do sustainable forest management. So that means to cut few big trees every year. And then with these trees, we can produce wood. You see here the trunks. We do a traceability. We take a picture of every tree before we cut, and then we know which wood is coming from each tree. So we bring there a sawmill, and then we produce our own wood that you can see here. And then we have a small CLT press where we can produce the panels, as you see here. And then the result is that working with this carpentry, last year, in fact, our students during the lockdown, because they were living there, they were a lockdown research place, and then they were building this, we call the quarantine cabin, that is a small wood construction with this burn exterior, and then the interior was a completely finished apartment produced from zero, that means from the forest to the construction. So that means that if we are able, a group of 15 students from different parts of the world, they are able to do this, everyone can do it, and we can do at the industrial level to produce cities. And this is how our building looks like. You see with this structure, and also with this the mixed use at 3 levels where the people can live, can work, and can produce resources. You will see now. Plan is a very normal plan for Europe, not for China. But this is a building that could be almost anywhere in the world, this kind of idea. In the center, there is a swimming pool following the tradition that we can see in Paris, in Vienna, or in Barcelona with these facilities included with the housing. This is the courtyard where we have agriculture, and also we have some playgrounds, the facade, and then some spaces for offices on top of the buildings. And then here we follow this basic idea of the human self-sufficiency, where people need energy, food, and objects to live, as we see our ancestors. This is the basic thing that they needed. And then there are different technologies about producing food in cities, like the urban orchard, the greenhouse, the CLT, and the LAD farming. I discovered this is Iceland. I was there last year, and I discovered they produce 10% of the tomatoes for the island. That means for for 30%, so for 100,000 people in only 1 hectare of greenhouse. And then if they can produce this in Iceland, they can produce tomatoes in Iceland where they have ice. I mean, we can produce anywhere. This is New York, the biggest rooftop farm in New York. And this is other sample of greenhouses. This is LAD farming. And then our proposal include rooftop where the citizens, they could have in every building some space to produce food using both the vertical farming like in Iceland or the LAD farming. So that means that if we produce food, we have more resilience and we can face other challenges that may will have in the future. Another topic is we were, because in Beijing we need to put panel 45 degrees. We were having all the roof have solar panels, including the greenhouse, in order to produce almost 80% of the electricity that this community, that this high dense need. So this is the also energy production in the rooftop with the courtyard. And obviously there will be some market for this food, or there will be also some restaurants and the people will be consuming their food. Another topic is the energy. As we saw, these are some samples from Barcelona where we produce solar energy in specific structures. This is in Brooklyn, also another structure, and the idea of having many structures, but we wanted to integrate in the building. So it's not a structure on top of the building, but it's the building itself that have the solar production integrated, and this is something we already did. And then the third thing is about this digital fabrication. You know, this is one big 3D printer where you can print one chair or one table only in one shot. And this was relevant because the first days of the pandemics, I don't know what happened in Slovakia, but here, I mean, there was a problem because we didn't have mask because the government was not able to buy. And then everyone wanted to buy to China, and China was not delivering. Were really a very crazy thing. So this was the madness of the industrial globalized world where we lose the ability to make things. And then what happened is that the makers, the young people using 3D printers start to print masks. We ourselves were working with the hospital in Barcelona producing this kind of elements that were hacking some masks from Decathlon. And then the fact is that in Spain, makers paying themselves the material, they produce more than 700,000 masks that were saving life, while the big industry was not able to deliver the right products. So that means that we need to develop what we could call the industrial, the digital reindustrialization of cities. So how we bring back industry to the cities. And this could be a sample that was in the ground floor where there are 3D printers and we can print objects for the people or for a small business that will be in the neighborhood. So that means that we don't need big industry to print a chair if we can print using 3D printers and so many other things. So this idea of designing in America and fabricating in China, obviously I don't support Trump because this is kind of idiot nationalistic. It's more about the empowering the communities by being able to produce things instead of thinking let's other produce. We should bring back production to the cities, producing energy, part of the food and part of the objects that we need in everyday's life. So the last thing was more about the interiors, the idea that we propose big terraces because terraces are places for the expansion where the people can work and people can rest and also people can play. There were several typologies of housing. And then there was a big living room. And then in this terrace is a place where you can also work, people can play. So it's a flexible space. We need this extended flexibility for our buildings. These are some small villas in some also part of the building. So yeah, that's all. So this is the proposal that we did with some economical analysis. That means that maybe you need to invest a bit more, but in order to be able to to be less dependent from other potential crises that we'll have in the future. And this is our contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Now, I have one question in the end. I saw that all your buildings practically are wooden constructions. What do you mean? Where all the people, the whole world will find so many forests, so many trees to build everything, also high-rise building from the wood? You believe it? It's possible.
Well, I will tell you one sample. Again, when you think on Barcelona, you imagine on beaches and you imagine, the cities and so on. But then Catalonia, that is Barcelona's capital of Catalonia, has 70% of the surface made with forest. And we manage right now only 20% of these forests. Part of the fires that we have in the Mediterranean forest is because we don't manage them. Because until now, the wood was not connected with the construction, was kind of special structures, but it was not very systematic. So that means that if we do in case of Catalonia, we could produce almost every building that we do today using our local wood, that this is not the case. And you know that in Russia, they is the biggest forest in the world, and today is not allowed to use the construction with timber, no, because they have old regulations. They take the forest and they use the forest to produce paper, to produce newspaper that they are used once per day, and every day they print again. So that means that right now there is this big movement about the bioeconomy and to give a new meaning to the forest. And then if you do a sustainable, and I explain, forests grow every year 3%. Yeah, that means that if you cut this 3%, that means the next year you will have the same volume of the forest. What we cannot do is to do deforestation as is happening in Brazil and what is happening in Africa. And because we don't see the value of the local use for the forest, the Chinese, for example, are going to Africa to cut the trees to make paper for China, while they should be protecting the forest there to do their own management and to produce their own buildings and so on. And because if not, they produce a huge amount of emissions with steel that they need to import from the other corner of the globe. So that means that we need to analyze and to make the good numbers. First, there are enough forests to be managed in the world. And second, obviously, we should do a massive replantation of forests, because Africa, for example, Ethiopia was covered 90% with forests, and right now they have only 10%. So there is a process of reforestation in the world that is completely necessary. But what I am interested is learning how we can use the nature in order to merge with the city, in order to produce these biocities. That's why we have this research center. But this is something that really we can do if we manage it the proper way.
Okay, thank you, Oleg.
I'm glad that the way Vincent is doing architecture and doing the lecture the same way he is living, because he's got a wood in his room, like a surface of the walls.
Yeah.
Very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Listen, I have some friends in Sweden, and the Swedish, if China is delivering something in containers, are filling the containers with the timber construction elements and selling the containers back to China. And I received the information 10 years ago. I was very surprised. Yes. And how is with the fire protection in China with these buildings and is it a problem?
Yeah, no, because the wood is very resistant to fire. The only question is that the thickness, you need every, I would say, some minutes burn some 1 centimeter of fire. And then depending on the regulation, sometimes depending on the height, need to be 90 minutes resistant, 120. So it depends on that. And that means that today, the structures are calculated more for the fire than not for the resistance. Yeah. The good thing is that in case of fire, the structure can resist. And the best thing is that you can see also what has been, how was affected. When you see with steel, the steel is much less resistant to the fire and need to be protected. This is one thing. And the case of concrete, that is resistant, but when there is a fire, you don't know what is the real impact of the fire in the structure itself, and it's very difficult to assess that. So that means that today, especially in Canada, but also in mostly in Finland and in Norway, Denmark, and even in Spain, there are clear regulations about how to use wood for the structure for construction. And this is quite transparent. So there is a question of the resistance because this was for gravity. And that's why there is not buildings of 200 meters high, obviously. But with that one that I showed that is in Norway is 18 meters high. And this is quite good. We are now doing 4 competitions in Barcelona with heights of ground floor +8. And the budget is almost the same for social housing. This is social housing. So that means that we have in front of us a potential for doing a major shift. I show the picture of the Bauhaus also because Behrens did the first glass facade in the fabric factory in 1914. So that means that every 50 years there is a big revolution about which are the materials that we use. In 19th century we had steel, 20th century we had concrete, and 21st century if we want to do a zero emissions Europe, as the president of Europe say, we need to stop using steel and concrete for construction, and we can use new materials that are zero emissions like wood. And that's a great potential. And we will appreciate more the forest. We plant more forests if we see also the interest, And about for capturing CO2, the trees are capturing when they are growing. When they are older, they are not capturing so much. So that means that to do a sustainable management of forests is good for the forests themselves.
So you feel it's a sustainable way, absolutely modern and not expensive.
It's much more sustainable than not using huge amount of energy in order to make a steel or to destroy mountains to make concrete. To make concrete and to sail by boats to Saudi Arabia, this is crazy, So that means that if what you say about Sweden sending to China, this is not circular. So this can be bioeconomy, but not circular bioeconomy. If you cut a tree in Africa, you send to China. In China, they do a wooden panel, and this wooden panel is used in Europe. This is crazy, absolutely crazy. So what it means is that we need to promote. In China, again, they had a huge amount of forests, and they were cutting them. Now I had been in factories because bamboo grow much more faster, and they do glue bamboo, and then with the bamboo they do in general they don't do well. I have seen housing done with bamboo, but obviously they should start a process of replantation of China because, as I say in Ethiopia, they already start to do, and wood will be great for absorbing CO2, but also to develop the new circular bioeconomy. And for construction, this can be a fantastic material. And it's a great opportunity for design. It's like when Le Corbusier found the concrete, or Perret was working with the concrete, what's a new material? Which is the architecture that is coming from that material? So this is the question, which is the architecture that is coming from the new industrialized wood?
something, and I have a question for Michal Bogar.
Yes.
I don't want to forget the question. Are you still in good contact with Dominic Perrault?
Yes.
Yes, because we'd like to invite Dominic Perrault to a Grand Prix of Architects, the jury, to be in the jury. So I will get a contact from Uri, and I will ask you for that.
Yeah, welcome. I will try to contact.
Ask Christian de Podzampark, but maybe this will be the better way through you.
Okay, I will try to contact him, and we stay in contact and
super.
Try to arrange
I
it.
will send you something and to show him, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to thank you very much to Vicente for the exceptional lecture. It was very nice. I met your colleagues last year in Bucharest from YAC. They visited Share Conference and they presented very new materials. Advanced Architecture was interesting. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very much for the lecture. And I hope to see you next year, because I think that your lecture will be the future for for the architecture in the world, and maybe not all, but a part will be with your ideas and your research. Congratulations and thank you again. I hope to see you next year. I know that you are in a hurry now, so thanks again.
Thank you very much, and see you next year, Florin. Thank you, Oleg and Juraj. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Michal, thank you.
See you.
It seems to me that our conference is going to the end. I want to thanks once again to Florin that he organized this conference first time in Bratislava, even if it is virtually. We was very glad to have you. So virtually in Bratislava, but I hope in the next year we will be able to organize the normal conference, but we will use the experience of these virtual conferences that maybe we will combine it, that the real conference where the people will meet, how also Tobias said, that the sense of the exhibition of the conference is that the people meet together and to exchange the ideas. And it is very interesting to have such conferences mixed with national speakers and international speakers, and I'm really glad that we became the family of the share conferences. Thank you, Florin. Thank you, Oleg.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Oleg. Thank you, Rai. I hope to see you soon in person. In person.
Florin, you are doing very good thing. The share
Together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
Next time. Bye.
Yeah. Our next meeting will be in December. Now we are preparing a very interesting event, a networking event for the end of the year, a networking wine architecture evening. So this is for all of us from the Chef Society, and I hope to see you healthy and optimistic at the end of the year. Thanks again.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sing for me. Please stand your belly, you got to let it breathe. Sing for me. Please stand your belly, you got to let it breathe. Sing for me. Please stand your belly, you got to let it breathe. Sing Beast in your belly locked.